They never sound rude, they never sound aggressive. In fact, the questions often arrive wrapped in concern, curiosity, or even praise. You might even feel flattered at first, but somewhere deep inside, something feels off. A pause, a subtle discomfort you can't quite name. That's because jealousy rarely announces itself honestly. It disguises itself as interest, as friendship, as harmless conversation. And today, we're exposing the 3 questions a jealous friend almost always asks. Not to accuse, not to judge, but to understand the hidden philosophy of envy that quietly shapes human relationships. Human beings are social mirrors. We constantly measure ourselves against others, even when we don't want to. And when someone close to us begins to grow, improve, heal, succeed, or simply become more confident, it creates an internal tension. Not because growth is bad, but because comparison is unavoidable. Jealousy is born in that gap between who someone is and who they believe they should be by now. Most people don't even realize they're jealous. They just feel uneasy around your progress. And that unease leaks out through questions. The first question sounds harmless, almost caring. Are you really happy? On the surface, it seems supportive, but listen carefully to the timing. It often appears right after you share good news, personal growth, or a sense of peace. The philosophy behind this question isn't concern, it's doubt. A jealous mind struggles to accept that someone close could genuinely be content, especially if they themselves feel unfulfilled. So instead of celebrating your happiness, they subconsciously search for cracks in it. They want confirmation that your joy is temporary, exaggerated, or fragile. Because if your happiness is real, it silently confronts their own dissatisfaction. This question isn't about you. It's about restoring balance in their inner world by shrinking your emotional win.
The second question goes even deeper because it disguises itself as curiosity about your process. How did you even manage to do that? Again, it sounds neutral, but emotionally, it's loaded. When admiration is healthy, this question is followed by inspiration. When envy is present, it's followed by comparison. A jealous friend asks this question not to learn, but to evaluate whether your success feels deserved. They are unconsciously checking if luck, shortcuts, or external help played a role.
Because if your progress came from discipline, courage, or inner change, it forces them to face their own inaction. Human philosophy teaches us that the ego protects itself by minimizing others. This question is the ego searching for a reason your growth shouldn't threaten their identity. The third question is the most revealing because it carries subtle insecurity masked as concern. Don't you think you're changing? This question rarely comes with curiosity. It comes with judgment. Growth always disrupts familiar dynamics. When you heal, you stop tolerating what once felt normal. When you evolve, you no longer fit neatly into the role others assigned you. A jealous friend doesn't fear that you're changing. They fear that you're outgrowing the version of yourself that made them comfortable. Philosophically, this question is about control, about preserving the old hierarchy where they knew where they stood in relation to you. Change threatens predictability, and predictability is safety for an insecure ego. What makes these questions powerful is not their wording, but their intention. Jealousy doesn't always want what you have. Sometimes it just wants you not to have it. Or at least not more than them. And here's the uncomfortable truth human philosophy often reveals. Jealousy thrives most in close relationships, not distant ones. Strangers don't compare deeply. Friends do. Because proximity magnifies contrast. Now, this doesn't mean every friend who asks these questions is malicious. Most jealousy is unconscious. It's a quiet emotional reflex, not a calculated plan. But awareness changes everything. When you recognize these patterns, you stop over-explaining, over-defending, and shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop handing out pieces of your confidence to people who are still negotiating their self-worth.
The deeper philosophical lesson here isn't about cutting people off. It's about emotional boundaries, about knowing when to share and when to protect. Growth doesn't require permission. Happiness doesn't need validation, and change doesn't need approval. A jealous friend may never openly admit their envy, but their questions reveal where their inner work remains unfinished.
And here's something even more important. If these questions trigger anger or defensiveness in you, pause. Because sometimes jealousy reflects parts of ourselves we've outgrown, not enemies we need to fight. Human philosophy teaches us that compassion and distance can coexist. You don't need to confront. You don't need to expose. You simply need to move differently. As you continue evolving, you'll notice something strange. Some people will celebrate quietly. Some will drift away silently. And some will stay close but ask questions that feel heavier than words. That's when wisdom steps in. You learn to listen not just to what's being asked, but to why it's being asked. Because real friendship doesn't interrogate your happiness. It doesn't question your worth, and it doesn't feel threatened by your becoming. Real friendship grows with you, not against you. So the next time someone asks if you're really happy, how you managed to change, or whether you think you're becoming someone else, don't rush to explain yourself. Smile, observe, and remember this. Not everyone who walks beside you is meant to walk with you forever. Some are simply witnesses to your transformation, struggling to understand what it reveals about themselves. And that's the quiet power of awareness. When you see envy clearly, it loses its ability to confuse you. When you understand human nature, you stop taking subtle resistance personally. You keep moving forward, lighter, calmer, and unapologetically aligned with who you're becoming. Because growth doesn't make you lonely. It just changes who can keep up.